speaker is Anita Breckbill, and she will be speaking on freedom. Anders Nyberg and the spread of songs from South Africa. Anita Breckbill is the head of the music library at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Her music and library degrees are from Goshen College in Indiana, the University of Iowa, and the University of California, Berkeley. She has published on diverse subjects from Wagner's Baton to music circulating library. That was a good one. Wagner's Baton. Libraries of 19th century France to Dickens and the Flute and more. She will be retiring this summer and taking up a temporary position in the fall, cataloging hymnals at the School of Theology, Boston University. This paper is being prepared for a YAML meeting in Stellenbosch, South Africa in June. Final adventure before retiring.
Right. And you'll see that this is actually written by me and Nekabazi Mukwana, who couldn't be here. She's a South African ethnomusicologist, and Myrna actually helped me find her. So some of this is written by her, and I think I'll wear this scarf when it's her words and take it off when it's my words if I remember. So Nekabazi started. I grew up in the capital of the former Transkei, and I have vivid memories of being exposed to banned literature, music, movies, and music of songs from the camps of the paramilitary wing of the South African Congress on TVK tapes that my brother Wayland used to blurt out in a radio player. The Freedom Charter in my home sat next to the Bible and church hymnal, wrapped in Christmas gift wrapping. All morning, my brother played songs from the camps, which were sometimes taken from popular songs such as Lean on Me. The word international was sung to this melody to emphasize that the fight against apartheid was an international endeavor. Some evenings, my father would walk in with banned movies, such as The Story of Mandela, as portrayed by Danny Glover and Alfred Woodward. The story of the African National Congress was etched in my brain before I hit puberty. And now Anita. I was a library assistant at the University of California, Berkeley, looking out my library window in the springtime, 1984, to see protesters on campus, and even more police, 3 squadrons in 3 different colors of uniforms. It was the time of the anti-apartheid protests in the United States, and UC Berkeley was one of the major places for protesting, calling for divestment. The next morning, as I came into work, garbage bins were flipped on campus, and there was a general feeling that something significant was happening here. A few weeks later, Bishop Tutu visited campus speaking to a large crowd in the outdoor Greek theater. He had 2 warm-up acts, Holly Meir, a well-known protest singer, and Bobby McFerrin, a young, relatively unknown performer at that time. It was announced that Bishop Tutu was late and coming from San Francisco on a helicopter, so as we waited, the young singer improvised to the delight of the audience on the subjects of Bishop Tutu and helicopters. The crowd had been protesting and was ready to be pumped up for vital action. When Bishop Tutu spoke, though, his message took things another way. He told us to love each other, and the crowd was left thoughtful and transformed. Also in 1984, across the world, a musician named Anders Nyberg published a songbook, Freedom is Coming, Songs of Protest and Praise from South Africa, in Glasgow, Scotland. The 15 songs were first published in 1980 in Sweden by the choral group Fedor, who also recorded them. These oral folk songs were originally in the languages of Zulu, Xhosa, Sotho, and one in English. Now, says Nyberg, we would like to make them available to English-speaking singers. In a lengthy and moving forward to the songbook, Nyberg talks of South Africa. Quote, out of the suffering of the Black people, a song is born. The singer can be silenced, but never the song. The hope of a free country, the dream of freedom. This song can never be taken from this people. In this interview clip I'll play for you, he talks about his first experience in South Africa with the choir. Okay, let's see.
It was absolutely, it was a total changing point of my life. We spent a month there, and through the good sort of personal contact we had, we got really in behind and underneath. We traveled a lot in KwaZulu, the homeland, in a squalor and an oppression that we had never seen the like of. But of course, also with a music and a joy. And that, I think, that's the paradox we came home with. How could we explain that all this joy was contained in all this misery? How, and I'm still living with that question. How?
He and the choir gathered songs, and later he spent a year in South Africa picking up music in townships, in gatherings, at churches. He actually married a South African and later became a citizen. We'd like to explore these songs and see how, at a time of revolution and change for South Africa, the songs became known throughout the world. For South Africa, the song spoke to the anti-apartheid movement. For others, the song spoke to other movements toward freedom of oppressed peoples.
It was.
Cancel recorders. Here we go. 1988, GIA Publications, a Catholic music publisher in the United States, put out the first edition of the hymnal Gather, a hymnal they characterize as including contemporary folk style hymns. The introduction says that the musical eclecticism is the call of the day. Two hymns from that Nyberg collection made the cut. Tuma Mina, does anyone know this hymn? Okay, a simple worshipful song with the text, send me Jesus, lead me, fill me. The first song in the Nyberg book also appears, Freedom is Coming. The second edition of Gather, which came out close on the heels of the first in '94, almost twice as big. And to these original two Nyberg songs are added Siyahamba, You're Marching in the Light of God. Some of you might know that, okay? And take note of it because it becomes important. And Hallelujah, We Sing Your Praises. So by 1994, 4 of the 15 songs appeared in an influential hymnal in the United States. From that point, we can watch the growth of the use of these songs in the hymnal repertoire. There are some songs in the collection that are very specific and not as suitable for hymnals, like Asikatali talks about jail, Akanamandla about Satan, Bamthatha and Vulabotha specifically about Mandela. But the songs chosen to be used in hymnals have themes of praise and freedom. Sifamandla appears in 2 hymnals, as does We Shall Not Give Up the Fight, Cozy Nkosi in 6. But then Freedom is Coming in 21 hymnals, Hallelujah in 32, Tumamina knocked out in 42 hymnals. Siyahamba exploded in popularity and now appears in no less than 55 hymnals. Wow. At hymnary.com, you can see the growth of the song Siyahamba with a graph of the percentage of hymnals that included the song published in that year until now. What caused these songs to be so popular so immediately in the US? The 1990s, I think, showed a real opening up to world music. I think these songs brought South Africa to North America, and with their compelling rhythms and their simple part singing, spoke to people directly. 1991, 2 important things happened. Tumamina, was sung at the 7th Assembly of the World Council of Churches in Canberra, Australia, and became popular internationally as a result. In Phoenix, Arizona, at the annual American Choral Directors Association, a choir from a small college in Iowa sang 6 songs from Nyberg's book. The director, Ben Alloway, was interested in world music and had found this Nyberg book in Minneapolis at a bookstore called St. Martin's Table, which was a hub of progressive Lutheran activity. Alloway says the 1990s was a big time for world music in the choral world. When his choir was accepted for ACDA, he edited 6 of Nyberg's pieces to be sung in sequence with call and response in between. This performance brought the songs to a wide audience and inspired conductors. A colleague of Alloway's, Anton Armstrong from St. Olaf College, was a regular conductor of all-state choirs in many states. As he programmed a song on a concert, the high school choirs in the state would learn the song and sing it on their concerts in preparation for some of their members being in the all-state choir. So suddenly, because of ACDA, these songs were all over the United States in high school choirs. Now I'm Nyberg again. After getting degrees in Cape Town, I enrolled on scholarship at the Oslo University College in Norway. There I attended West African dance classes and was put in contact with the Inkululeko cultural group that had been formed in February of '87 in Oslo. I had always called the Inkululeko choir a South African exiled choir in Norway, but after hearing the experience of Anders Nyberg with Theodore in South Africa, I'm starting to understand that there was a youth ministry underlying the experience of how all this South African repertoire of music has spread across the world. South Africans in exile around the world remained in hiding, as singing for a choir could have jeopardized their personal security. Most of the repertoire of this choir, especially in the context of youth Christian ministry, was an extension of the passive resistance music that saw hymns being sung as political songs at political gatherings, funerals, and rallies. So here are several clips where Anders Nyberg talks about the wedding of the religious and the political in these songs.
Just one thing comes to mind now. We're in a school, I think 500-600 kids, and we have taken one of the sort of the freedom songs of the time, Shosholoza Mandela, and everyone knew it, Shosholoza Mandela, and but then we had translated that into made another English version that was totally non-political, a very sort of kind Easter hymn. But as we start singing that one in the school, you know, you can hear the kids all of a sudden, the first bar, you know, they're picking up the message. We were singing about resurrection, about Easter, and here everyone knows we're singing about the freedom of this country. And it's like just electric, you know, the feeling there when they understand what we are communicating, and they know that we are together in this, you know. But no one can point a finger and say we're doing something illegal there. We're just like communicating in the most beautiful way.
Here's another clip.
Just one,
Oops.
so 1 foot very firmly planted in the church. We came from a youth choir in church, but we had also the other foot very firmly planted in a folk music tradition. And I could say also how should I say it? A political, let me call it political tradition. We were invited in both camps, and we tried to be ourselves. We tried to sing a little hallelujah even at the political meetings, and we definitely sang a lot of hardcore political songs in the churches. So they couldn't really nail us down.
The Protestant hymnody of various missionary contexts, such as the Presbyterian, Anglican, and Methodist churches, has undergone transformations in which new meanings yielded the power to indigenize and resist. It's a quote from Bowman. The transformation of mission hymns to national anthems in Africa is yet another example of the ways in which the aesthetic embeddedness of music transforms meaning. Sontanga's Nkosi Sikelel Africa, God Bless Africa, first came into existence as a hymn, but underwent many transformations on its way to become a Pan-African anthem of resistance to colonial domination, and then a national anthem for Tanzania in '64 and South Africa in '95. In the course of its history, the song picked up texts in numerous indigenous languages, as well as in English and Afrikaans, which together enhanced its post-colonial significance. The transformations of the Protestant hymnody into new meanings was paired with aspirations of Black theology, such as the themes When the Fatherless Son Meets the Black Messiah, or Jesus in the Streets. In his book, Pharaohs on Both Sides of the Blood Red Waters, Reverend Alan Bosak has a transatlantic conversation comparing the struggles South Africans faced in the townships in the 1980s with the protest and resistance of the Black community of Ferguson, Missouri. In the latter, Ferguson, there is solace, quote, "There's solace for a non-believer in the masses risking their lives, calling for justice and freedom in Ferguson, and that has made all the difference." For the former, Bosak recounts the first state of emergency of the apartheid regime of South Africa, and tells of the day a prayer service at the Belleville United Reformed Church, Cape Town, called for the release of Tata Nelson Mandela. The service had begun, but students were still streaming in from surrounding townships. Someone came in to alert the people inside the church that the police were arresting young people coming down the street towards the church. Young people erupted out of the church, moving toward the police vehicles, singing Akanamandla Usatana. Bosak highlights that the song filled the protests with power and defiant hope, dancing and stamping their feet, pointing in the direction of the police as they sang the word Satan. Bosak explains it was an astonishing experience. The students were singing that the power of the apartheid regime was clear to see, frighteningly represented by the might of their police and their army. Students were singing and dancing all around the police vehicles in which their arrested comrade was held. The police, somewhat confused and bewildered, it seemed to me, released the arrested young man. Others, having watched all this, join us as we march, singing and dancing back in the church, resuming the worship service. That day we, as we would again and again, saw Jesus in the streets. With him we saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Indeed, Akanamandla Usatani. Now Anita. In the United States, the songs also took on protests in meaning in protest movements. 1996, One Voice Mixed Choir, an LGBTQ choir from Minneapolis, programmed two of the songs on a concert, Freedom is Coming and We Shall Not Give Up the Fight. The director, Jane Ramsire Miller, had met the songs at her college in Toronto. She and her friends sang them, and when she became director of One Voice, she programmed several on her first concert. She says, after that first performance, we used them over and over when we sang out in the community, at a protest, on the street, in churches and synagogues. They became what we refer to as core rec, meaning they were always in our back pocket when someone asked us to sing. The Black Lives Matter movement in the United States, 2013, protested against systemic racism and violence against Black people. Listen to this account of a Black Lives Matter march singing Siyahamba. The other day, a small group from my church joined others from our neighborhood in a march on Chicago's North Side. As we swarmed the streets, temporarily shutting down traffic, I noticed a woman in a car. Some motorists were exasperated, trying to turn around and just glowering at us. Others were supportive, honking their horns to the rhythm of Siyahamba, as we sang. But this woman did nothing but sit there, parked in the middle of the procession, and wipe tears from her eyes. With visible emotion, she registered shock at this small but mighty band of the faithful marching with a processional cross at our head, proclaiming that Black Lives Matter. This traditional song, Siyahamba, spoke directly to the marchers and the listeners in the Black Lives Matter movement. 2024. Earlier this year, a group of Mennonites protested in the rotunda of the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and a release of the hostages. They sat down on the floor and sang hymns. One of the song leaders, Philip Stoltzfus, reflected on singing Siyahamba. About 10 minutes into the action, with everybody still there, no one arrested yet, and the height of their energy, we started singing the verses, "We are marching in the light of God," and "We are singing in the light of God." Then immediately after that, we did a verse substitution. "We are singing for a ceasefire now." About a half an hour later, when everybody was arrested with zip ties and lined up in groups of 10 around the rotunda, there was plenty of time for those of us left to sing additional songs without the words or songbooks available, hands tied behind our backs. And Siyahamba, of course, came up again, easy to do at that point from memory. We ended up singing "We Are Marching," literally, as one of the groups was being marched out of the rotunda. In the hallway somewhat later, impromptu singing of Siyahamba cycled back to another verse, "We are Mennonites for ceasefire now." Stoltzfus used the term zipper song when talking about Siyahamba. Has anyone heard that term before? No, okay. So in a zipper song, you can substitute a word or phrase in one verse and another word or phrase in the next verse. This song, for example, went from "We are marching in the light of God" to "We are singing in the light of God" to "We are singing for a ceasefire now" to "We are Mennonites for ceasefire now." Each small change becomes more specific and more pertinent to the protest. This is the 40th anniversary of the publication of the song "Freedom is Coming" in the English world. Since that time, the songs have spoken to several generations of singers, worshipers, and protesters in North America and Europe, as well as South Africa. From congregations singing hymns, to college and high school choirs, to protest movements, LGBTQ, Black Lives Matter, and other freedom movements, these songs have found a resonance in people and between cultures. With Nyberg, we feel these concerns etched into our brains. Thank you. Questions? We're at the end of the day.
So you mentioned that in the 90s, these songs in the South African choral idiom became more popular in the United States. Do you think any of that at all had to do with Paul Simon's Graceland album?
Oh, yeah, good question. When was that put out?
I feel like it was in the 80s.
I think, sure, why not? I think he caught the wave.
Yeah.
You know, I think there was a wave where he caught it and it added to it. Yeah. Yeah.
86.
Okay.
86, yeah. So the Catholic music publishers group got there before he did that. Oh no, they were in 88. Okay, so the song that came out in 84.
84
I don't know.
was the protest.
Yeah, right.
So when you interviewed Anders, were you in person or was that over Zoom?
That was over Zoom. So he was in Sweden.
Yeah.
And Nyberg was in South Africa. And I was in Nebraska. So,
Cool.
yeah, we got very used to Zoom, but, during COVID, but I hadn't really thought about international Zoom. But that was very fun.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, he had a lot to say, and it was very interesting.
Can you address any concerns about cultural appropriation?
Cultural appropriation. No. Yeah, so the LGBTQ choir person said that she became more concerned about that and sang the songs a little bit less. The question is, who's getting money for the publications and all that stuff. And I haven't read a lot about the issue of cultural appropriation. I would say that if you're using someone else's stuff for good purposes, you're okay.
Cultural appreciation.
What? It's cultural appreciation. It's sort of like those masses back in the Renaissance that were what they called parody masses that used chants. It's an honor. The songs, by and large, did not have composers, so that's another issue. But like, who's benefiting? It's a question to ask. So, right, anything else? Okay, if we're going to march at any point, I'm going to have you guys sing Sia Hamba. Who knows this song? We are marching in the light of God. We are marching in the light of God. Right, and I actually was going to have us.
Well, you can, as long as it's like only like 2 minutes long, we can do it.
Okay, let's do it.
So can you sort of read it? Enough of us know it. We are marching in the light of God. 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 We are marching, marching, we are marching, we are marching in the light of God. We are marching, we are marching, we are marching in the light of God. And we PMLA sing now, and PMLA sing now, and PMLA sing now, and PMLA sing now. We are singing, singing, we are singing, we are PMLA singing now. We are singing, we are singing, we are singing now. Okay, you got it. You're ready for a protest of any sort or just to march. Yeah.
I do have one question. Do you believe that in the recent current protests that are going on, that there is a similar situation that has gone on with the usage of resistance songs from the region that people are protesting for? Because I've seen a rise in the song Palestine is starting to rise on Instagram, where they're starting to use that song specifically.
Oh, that's superb. Wow, that we should send somebody.
It's considered a fascinating song.
Well, it would make sense, and the Ukrainian national anthem as well. We've heard a lot more about that song, choir programs and everything. Yeah. So music is important to us in many ways. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.